In a field where I can't determine who the favorite is going to be, who am I going to pick as the winner? Stay to the end and find out. Trust the profits. It's the formula here, and I'm going to do a full field rundown of the Essex Handicap for 2023. This is a race that's going to be run in Oaklawn this Saturday, March 18th, 2023. It is worth half a mil, 8.5 furlongs on dirt. That is 1 mile and a 16th. So it's been a while since we did something that wasn't a Derby prep. We're talking about a few older horses here, a few horses that were on the prep circuits last year and years previous even. So it'll be interesting to go through here, and horses with a lot of question marks, I would say. Let's get into it. The first one, Silver Prospector, 26 races to his credits. 6 of those are wins. He did have a win last time out, 107K allowance race at OP, beating Superstock by 3 1/4 lengths. A couple other horses of note in there, Soy Tapadio and Thomas Shelby in that race. He did run the fifth season stakes, making his way to fifth place in that race. Had trouble actually moving around in that race. 6 lengths behind Ginobili. Wasn't super impressive in that race. 6 at the Ack, an 8 furlong event at Churchill Downs. He was 6 lengths behind Senior Buscador and other company in that race. 4 lengths behind in the West Virginia Governors behind Folsom. So as we talk about these races, not being able to get into position to actually have a nice charge to win it, Silver Prospector, still a lot of question marks there. Even though this is a horse that years back we talked about being on the Derby Trail. He won a Southwest Stakes at one point in his career. What are we going to do with him? Again, stay to the end and find out. Vittorio, 8 races, 2 wins, 2 places. First time at Oaklawn, first time in a stakes race for Vittorio. So this is going to be an interesting one here. Coming off of 2 second-place allowance finishes at Gulfstream, came in second to Charge It by 1.5 lengths, which in itself is a feat. I do want to say, anytime you finish just second by a length to Charge It in a race of that nature, you're putting yourself in pretty rare company there. First race under Wilmot, he did transfer and showed as being pretty impressive there. At Santa Anita, he did come in second place to Shaz in a 72K 1 mile race, 2 lengths behind in that one. Vittorio, this is his first stakes race. What's it going to be? A lot of times horses don't do well in their first stakes race, unless you're talking about Derby prep, where a lot of them are first time to a stakes race anyway, or you got some real burners. But curious to see what the upgrade is here for Vittorio. Rated R Superstar. So we're talking about a horse that didn't have a lot of stakes experience. Rated R Superstar has plenty of that. Almost 10 years old. Rated R Superstar. You've been around for a while. How old is this horse? When he ran in the BC Juvenile, Nyquist won it. How about that? Most recently, he came in fourth, going 8.5 furlongs at the Razorback Handicap, 12 lengths behind Last Samurai. He won the Jeffrey A. Hawk Stakes, a 1 mile, 70-yard affair by half a length. Struggled in the Remington Green Stakes. 4 races at Oaklawn in 2022, including a win at the Essex. So he was the last winner of this race that we're talking about here. Rated R Superstar. Like I said, almost 10 years old. Been trying to count him out, been trying to say, well, this may be his last race for a year now, maybe 2 years. So Rated R Superstar, how much more does he have left in the tank? Does he have enough to hit the board in this one at the Essex? He does like Oaklawn. Call me fast. So 9 races, 3 wins, 2 places. Not too bad. 2 wins in his last 2 starts, too. First time running in any kind of stakes race. Has raced in a few 100K allowance races and a couple 100K maiden races before that. In his last 2 races, he went a mile in a 62K allowance race, winning over Great Escape by half a length. First place. Previous race, going 8.5 furlongs in a 104K race at Oaklawn, 2 lengths over Tonka Warrior. So to me here, you're going to see this from another horse later on. Distance doesn't seem to be a concern, but the challenge of facing a greater class of horse. Granted, they all have their knocks, as I said at the beginning. Call me fast. Is he ready to take that leap into these stakes races and make a name for himself in the first one? Remains to be seen. Classic Causeway. So yeah, I mean, we talk about a horse with some interesting question marks. Classic Causeway has had plenty of these over his career. 4 wins in 13 races, second place one time, third place 4 times. Last saw Classic Causeway in 2 races at Keeneland in October. What happened at those? Byron Station, Bryan Station, a G3 race on turf going 1 mile, jumped to the pace, ended up weakening towards the end, finishing six, only 2.5 lengths behind, so it wasn't too bad. Some of those turf races, you can get really bunched up at the end. At the Coolmore Turf Stakes, going the mile, um, never really found his groove there. Classic Causeway, that's a horse that wants to get on the pace. Didn't find his way to the pace there. He stuck around in fifth place for most of the race, fifth, sixth place, and that's where he stood, where he ended up. But yeah, as said before, he wants to be on the pace. You look at what happened in Tampa Bay Derby, Sam Davis. He wired those races. He was getting out into the front, trying to set the pace early. A lot of people thought that that's probably what was going to happen, assuming he was healthy in this past Kentucky Derby. Obviously, some wild things went down there. Since the Sam Davis and the Tampa Bay, he did win the Belmont Derby, his first turf race. Had a number of third place finishes since then, but I mean, you can sort of see what's going on here. He's returning to dirt. What happens there? He's run, I think, 5 or 6 turf races over the past year or so. Hasn't touched dirt until now. He's a pace setter. It's going to be interesting. He will get out in front. A pace setter at 8.5 furlongs, one that has faded in the past, one that was fading in some of these turf races. Be curious to see what happens with Classic Causeway. Necker Island, 7 wins and 30 starts. Last time out, 108K, 6 furlong allowance race at Oaklawn, finished third there, 4 lengths behind Edge to Edge. Won a couple of smaller stakes races, all those at 6 furlongs. Hasn't raced a mile, just a mile, not even talking about 8.5 furlongs, since May of 2022. So it's been over a year since he's gone at least a mile. To me, he's an insta-toss, a little bit outclassed here, and I think also outdistanced. I don't think Necker Island is going to be my safe bet here at all. Moving on. Forza de Oro, 11 starts, 4 wins for Forza de Oro. 2 third-place finishes since moving to Bradcock. So what are those? You got the G3 Louisiana, 8.5 furlongs, set the pace, but was passed down the stretch by Mr. Wireless. Finished third, but was only half a length behind in that race. Previous to that, Tenacious Stakes, again, 8.5 furlongs, which is what this race is. Got up to first place around the half-mile mark, or around the mile mark, rather. Yielded to Mr. Wireless and Happy American, finished 3.5 lengths, 3 3/4 lengths behind in that race. Since running for Brad Cox, progressed a little bit in both of those races. Curious to see what happens here, especially horses with question marks next to their names. Who else we got left? Another Brad Cox horse with question marks, Tawny Port. At one point, high on some people's lists, maybe not the highest Brad Cox horse last year. Obviously, he went off in the Derby at like 78-1. Interesting horse here. He did finish seventh in that race. I will point that out. Most recently, he's had some struggles, though, so let's talk about that. So fifth place at the Mine Shaft Stakes, G3 at the Fairgrounds. He finished 8 lengths behind Pioneer Medina in that one. Never really fired. Looked even worse before that, the Penn Derby, 16 lengths behind Taba. But even worse than that, he had 8 horses in between him and Taba. He finished 10th in that race. He did win the Lexington Stakes. He won the Ohio Derby at Thistledown. And after that Ohio Derby, I thought that bigger things were going to happen for Tawny Port. Also at the Jim Dandy, he was 2 lengths behind Epicenter and Zandon. It looked like Tawny Port was starting to progress up, but those last couple of races, he's starting to shift down a little bit, unfortunately. So Tawny Port, this could be a rebound for him, or he could be settling into something else. Keystone Field, 7 wins in 24 starts, only ran in 2 graded stakes races, most recently the Razorback, and he finished 7th in that race, 20 lengths behind Last Samurai, who we're going to get to in a bit. Kentucky Turf Cup at the Kentucky Downs. I mean, that's when you can probably just put a line through. It's a weird one, an odd selection, a turf race kind of right in the middle of all these dirt races that he was in. And he hadn't really run on turf for about 6 months after being claimed from Richard Mandela. Wins sprinkled in between these races. 62 2K claimers mostly, going 8.5 to 9 furlongs. So the distance isn't an issue here for Keystone Field. I just wonder how he's going to be able to handle the class. Only one graded stakes race on dirt. He's facing some pretty tough competition here, one of which pounded him into the ground last time. Moving on, the last one we have here, Last Samurai. Only 5 wins in 23 starts. However, the last race he had, the Razorback, a G3 race, 8.5 furlongs. He beat West Will Power by 1.5 lengths in that race. Pretty impressive win overall. The Pegasus before that, yeah, he was 7 lengths behind, finished fourth behind Art Collector. Defunded and Stiletto Boy were 2 and 3 lengths ahead of him in that one. But remember, Art Collector put on a pretty impressive show in that race as well. So actually getting up to fourth there, minor accomplishment, but it's better than I think a lot of us had him pegged for. I had him pegged as an also ran before that. So fourth place is better than I expected. He's running a lot of big stakes races. He always hits around third, fourth place. But maybe we're seeing an upturn here, a trajectory for him, something better, which leads me to my strategy here. I'm not even going to put a value play here because I think Last Samurai may end up being a value play when you consider that there are a couple Brad Cox horses in this race, um, silver prospectors in this race. I don't know what the odds are right now. I think they're going to come out after I record this, shortly after. But I'm going to guess that Last Samurai is going to get a pretty good value, so I didn't put a value play in here. I key in with him, Forza de Oro, Rated R Superstar, and Vittorio. I think Vittorio is going to give you some great value. I think he might be one that maybe squeaks in there. I don't think he has a chance to win, but he has a chance for third place. I like what I've seen from Vittorio lately. Tawny Port, I didn't put him in my top 3. Neither did I put Silver Prospector. There's a couple in here that uh, going into this race, I thought I was going to be rating higher, and then just looking through, reading through, taking a look at how they raced last couple times out, even if they were racing in some pretty heavy stakes races, I just didn't like what I saw from them. Classic Causeway was another one. I really wanted to get Classic Causeway in here, but I think the shift to dirt, I'm not sure if that's going to be a positive shift for him, especially if he burns out on the pace and is passed by a whole bunch of other horses. I could see that happening too. He's been fading a lot lately. So there you have it. Um, is it controversial what I said there? Controversial who I left out of my top 4, even out of 10 horses. Let me know about it in the comments section. Let me know what you think. Hit the subscribe button, hit the join button. Love hearing from you. Thank you very much and have a good one.